I joined Vine in October of 2024, and my dad started the restaurant group 31 years ago now in Larkspur originally, and then we opened Menlo Park. And so I'd sat on the board for a while, and it was clear that, we needed to go in a different direction from a leadership perspective. So been basically in the seat for the last year or so, but I've sort of grown up going to the first restaurant as a young kid, having my birthday party at the restaurant before it was a real restaurant. And so sort of throughout, I've evolved as a human as well alongside sort of the businesses. So I think the brasseries themselves are sort of these like classic red leather booths, big French vintage advertising posters that really reflect the large scale brasserie in France. I think we see opportunities to evolve that experience and look and feel through more dynamic use of music and lighting, especially. I think we've got some real opportunities that we'll be looking at over the next year or so to sort of give you that warm, sexy glow that I don't think all of the restaurants have in quite the same way. But yeah, I think they're very much a reflection of like, how do we transport you without you having to get on a plane and fly 10 hours? How do we give you the feeling of being in France, being able to sit out on a patio and watch the world go by and people watch and enjoy an experience, or sitting inside in a cozy restaurant on a dark winter night and have a great bowl of French onion soup? How do we make that as transformative as possible so that you're like, oh, if I closed my eyes, could I picture this being in Paris or not? And I think there's still work to do on that front, but there's definitely a lived-in feeling that we have that we don't want to get rid of, but also how do we continue to evolve that overall experience? In Paris, there's two different sides of the River Seine. There's a left bank and there's the right bank. Left bank was originally named after the left bank of the Seine in Paris, which is where a lot of the brasseries and bistros happen to be. And so because it's a traditional French brasserie, that's very much sort of the inspiration for the name. And so that's where the name comes from. I think we definitely did lose our spark. And I think not just us, a lot of restaurants really struggled coming out of the pandemic. New staff, inflation, navigating that is always a challenge. It's really figuring out how to provide a great guest experience and value while still delivering exceptional quality. And I think that's been a super challenging thing to do over the last 4 or 5 years. To me, we've really focused, going through each of the concepts. Meso we're currently working on, but Left Bank, we've refocused on the core menu items. Okay, let's look at suppliers like Flannery Beef, and can we buy a better product? Can we deliver a better guest experience? Value isn't just simply the cost of something, it's also the perception that a consumer has of what that experience is worth to them. And so I think for me, that's very much where we've been working to refocus. I don't think we're there yet. I think it's a journey. We've still got massive room for improvement on consistency and quality of service and other things, but I think it's an area where getting feedback from guests is so critical for us. I get emails, we removed the skirt steak on the steak frite, thinking that would be this win by replacing it with petite filet, and instead I got all these like, hey, where's my skirt steak emails and comments, and managers did. And so we're listening to that feedback, and the skirt steak is back on the menu now, right? And so we need the feedback from our guests. We need to be open and listening to that feedback, and then we need to be actioning it as quickly as possible, just the same way we need feedback from our staff. I think all of that is going to be a never-ending process, but I think we're in the first few innings of that sort of key directional change. So on the new menu side, we've talked a little bit about like the Flannery Beef piece. That's obviously a huge thing. We've now got 3 different steak frite options, one of which is a poivre or with pepper. So it's got a peppercorn sauce. So we're really excited about those. We really focused on dialing in the core menu items, the classics of the French onion soup, the escargot, the steak tartare, the steak frite, bouillabaisse, beef bourguignon. If you're going to a brasserie, you're sort of expecting to see those items. And if you don't see those items, you're like, why am I coming to this place? We've actively been working on dialing those in and driving consistency on those, making them the best version that we can for those items. And we're starting to move into the second phase. On the cocktail side, we really wanted to reimagine the cocktail program. The previous program, we didn't feel like was as exciting or dynamic as we would like it to be. And so, we really are focusing on classic cocktails, but sort of with an innovative twist on them. So we're doing a passion fruit, effectively margarita, which is not necessarily the most French thing, but again, it's like, okay, how do you take a seasonal ingredient and deliver something that's well loved? The first LB steak basically came about because we had a prior restaurant in the space called Tanglewood, and it was not a successful concept. There was a rash of failures, and so ultimately we decided we would reconcept it into LB Steak. I think we did a good job successfully identifying, hey, there's this opportunity in the marketplace for this sort of contemporary steakhouse. Right now, we're sort of doing the next round of evolution on the brand, where we're looking to drive a lot more Japanese Asian influence. We're starting to see this sort of steakhouse and concept of this more specialized variation of a steakhouse where it's another cuisine with steakhouse. And so it's sort of reinterpreting the steakhouse classics you know and love. Things like cream spinach or fried rice is not really a traditional steakhouse thing, but a Wagyu fried rice is. This is now through a new viewpoint, and so it's innovative, and it's not something you've necessarily had, but you're like, oh, I really like this. This is delicious. Sourcing is an area that we're in the middle of a project on right now, and so effectively we're looking at Newport. We brought in a Cream Co product. There's so many great steak providers. We also have an extensive A5 Wagyu program. There's a million different steak producers out there. It's like, okay, well, what's the right fit? So I think we're constantly kind of looking at how do we make this better? Is there a different supplier? What does success look like for this product? And then how do we get there? So Meso is Federal Realty, who has been a great partner for us at Santana Row. We worked with them closely at Left Bank and LB Steak. They were building the NetApp building, and there were 2 restaurant pads there. And so we were early in discussions with them about, hey, we'd be interested in this space. They really wanted a Mediterranean concept. And so it was this sort of collaborative process, much the same way we reconcepted Tanglewood and LB Steak. So I think, for us, very much focused on, again, those bright, lush, vibrant flavors and providing that sort of differentiated product on the row where there wasn't sort of something in that vein. Mediterranean food's a lot about gathering around the table and sharing food. And so, you can order the 5 different dips and have this incredibly diverse, this tastes nothing like that one. And it's sort of the Remy from Ratatouille, fireworks scene where it's like, oh, this burst of flavor or that burst of flavor, right? I think to me, Mediterranean food is about very bright, bold, vibrant flavors on the plate and then sharing those. So at Meso, one of the key things about the program is that the entire meat program is halal. So the beef, the lamb, the chicken. As far as I know, we're the only restaurant on the row and one of the few restaurants in the entire South Bay that's really taken that extreme level approach. Again, how do we be more welcoming to guests? How do we look at our guest demographic and make sure that we're accommodating their needs and providing a great guest experience for them? We're super proud of that. Halal meat is definitely expensive, but I think you get a really good quality of product at that point. And so for us, it's the same reason we have an extensive mocktail and refresher program, because we have so many guests that don't drink alcohol but still want to have a great beverage experience combined with the food experience that they're having. The team there is working really hard to raise the service level and raise that sort of welcoming warmth. When you go to a lot of Mediterranean countries, you walk in and you feel that very warm, welcoming, gracious hospitality. And I think for us, that's very much our focus, is in driving in that direction. Fundamentally, what we want to do is we want to kind of pull back the curtain and really give people a better sense of what happens behind the doors of the kitchen, what happens behind the scenes on the front of the house. I think, there's a lot of misconceptions that restaurateurs are all making so much money. It's way easier to sort of address misconceptions with education and give people a detailed insight into, okay, how is a dish made, start to finish, right? Why does something in a restaurant taste fundamentally different than what it tastes at home? For us, it's give that behind the scenes, show how a dish is made, give some insight to guests to understand, okay, how might a dish might be made, how might be something priced, how do we think about certain things within the business so they have a better understanding and hopefully learn something and get enjoyment and excitement out of it that ultimately makes them want to come in and have that experience.